أشرقت نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. أهلا وسهلا ومرحبا بكم. I welcome every single one of you to the fifth lesson of the fourth semester of the Student Guild. I hope inshallah that you are ready for today's lesson and that you are following with zeal and enthusiasm, and that you do not fall back with regards to the viewing of these videos. Last week, the ahadith that we went through, we had learnt the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraging us to hasten the burial preparations. If this person was righteous, you are only taking him to something which is better, and if he was unrighteous, then you are getting some evil off your shoulders. We had also learnt that if you pray Salatul Janazah over your brother, you get the reward of a qirat. What's a qirat? Like the mountain range of Uhud in rewards. And if you follow the Janazah until burial occurs, you get 2 qirats in reward. What does qirat mean? We had discussed the mountain range of Uhud in reward. Ibn Umar stated, لَقَدْ فَرَّطْنَا فِي قَرَارِيتَ كَثِيرًا. We have wasted and we have been negligent with so many qirats. Look into yourself, how many qirats have you let go by? We had also spoke about following the Janazah procession. Then we said majority of the scholars, you can walk in front, you can walk behind, you can walk at the side. But if you are riding a horse, a camel, or you are in your car, then it's best that you be behind the funeral procession. What about standing up? Majority of the scholars state that this is abrogated. Certain scholars, Imam al-Nawawi, Ibn al-Qayyim, they state that it is still mustahab, that if the funeral procession is moving by, then you stand up as a sign of respect. We had also seen that as you lower the body into the grave, you say, Bismillah wa ala millati Rasulillah. Breaking the bones of somebody who is dead is similar in sin to breaking the bones of somebody who is alive. We had learned the 2 types of graves, the lahad and the shiq. And the lahad, or the L-type shaped grave, is closer to the sunnah. And that's the type of grave that the Messenger ﷺ was buried in. We had spoke about talqeen, and talqeen is when you come to the grave of a dead person and you say La ilaha illallah ya fulan. Say that Allah is your Rabb, O fulan. Say that Muhammad is your Prophet, O fulan. Giving this person the answers when the angels come to question him. And we stated, many of the scholars of Islam have stated that this is an innovation. The ahadith on the topic or the narrations on the topic are not authentic. And also we state that the taklif, the time of taklif, is when this person was alive. Now that he's passed away, there is no taklif on him and nothing can he be benefited by. We also state that this hadith or narration and practice goes against the ahadith and the verses of the Quran which speak about the fact that the dead cannot hear even at their grave. We spoke at length about the mas'ala of putting a plant or a stem or a branch or tree etc. on the grave, and we discussed that matter, and we said that this was not the general practice of the Prophet ﷺ, nor was it the general practice of the Sahaba. With that, inshallah, we continue with hadith number 472. وعن بريدة بن حصيب الأسلمي رضي الله تعالى عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها رواه مسلم. I used to forbid you from visiting the graves فزوروها, but go and visit it. Now you are allowed. رواه مسلم. وزاد الترمذي فإنها تذكر الآخرة, for verily it reminds you of the hereafter. في حديث ابن مسعود وتزهد في الدنيا, and it makes you a zahid of this dunya, that you want to buy this and you want to get that and you have hope for this or that. And when you visit the graveyard, you realize that all of these matters of the dunya, they are insignificant compared to the hereafter, your final residence. We see in this hadith that number 1, At the beginning of Islam, it was not allowed for the Muslims to visit the graveyard. كُنْتُ نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْ زِيَارَةِ الْقُبُورِ. I used to forbid you from visiting the graves. Why was it not allowed? It was not allowed because the Muslims were new to Islam. They were fresh to this Iman. And they were very, very close to the days of Jahiliyyah. لا تذرن آلهتكم ولا تذرن ودا ولا سواع ولا يغوث ويعوق ونسرا. That do not leave your idols. Do not leave Wad, Wala, Suwa, Yadhuq. All of these idols that people used to worship. These were pious men. As Ibn Abbas stated in Sahih al-Bukhari, when they had passed away, their family had put a stone or some sort of means that they could remember the good deeds of these pious ones. As the generations went on and on, Shaitan had come to the latter generations. And he stated, do you know why your forefathers had put this at the grave? Whenever your forefathers had a need, they would come to these pious souls and they would ask them, and these would be intercessors to Allah. And that's how shirk crept into the ummah. And so these Muslims were close to the days of Jahiliyyah. Prophet ﷺ, in trying to strengthen their tawheed, he forbade them from visiting the graves. So if anyone had passed away, they would bury him and not visit the graves ever again. Subhanallah. Later on, this was abrogated, and this hadith is a proof for this principle of abrogation. It clearly in and of itself shows that something was prohibited and now it has been made allowed. So the Prophet ﷺ allowed them. And what's the reason for the allowance? We spoke about the reason for the prohibition. What is the reason for the allowance? The Prophet ﷺ stated clearly, فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُكُمُ الْآخِرَةِ. It reminds you of the hereafter, and وَتُزَهِدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا. It makes you a zahid of this dunya. But if the maqbara, if the graveyard loses that aspect, if for example you put these beautiful domes and these beautiful shrines, who is ever going to think about the akhirah? You visit a grave like that and you are spellbound by its beauty, and you are spellbound by the calligraphy and the various architecture. Nobody's going to think about the akhirah, so it loses that reason that you've been made allowed to visit it. Subhanallah. Whoever goes to the Taj Mahal and thinks about the akhirah? Nobody at all. It has lost its reason for visit. And the reason for visiting the graveyard is to remind you of the akhirah. And when a graveyard or a grave loses that factor, then it's no longer allowed for you to visit it. And we had stated that this hadith is a proof for the principle of abrogation, nasikh and mansukh in our sharia. Hadith number 473. وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعن زائرات القبور أخرجه الترمذي وصححه ابن حبان. In this hadith, the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم لعن أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لعن, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم cursed زائرات القبور, the females who visit the graveyard. This hadith is clear in its prohibition of females visiting the graveyards. And that is the opinion of many of the scholars of Islam, the Maliki scholars, the Shafi scholars. They state that it is not allowed for the female to visit the graveyards, and also many of the Hanbali scholars. What's their proof? This hadith is clear with regards to them that females are not allowed. Za'irat, females who visit, who make ziyarah of the graveyard. But the scholars, they have a matter and they have a problem at hand. Which hadith came first? Remember the previous hadith? I forbade you from visiting the graves, but now you are allowed. Technically, if hadith number 473 was first, so we are prohibited females, you are not allowed to visit the graves. And then hadith number 472 came, then technically females are allowed to visit the graveyards because they fall within the allowance. Prophet ﷺ is saying at the beginning, females, you are not allowed to visit the graveyards. Just like everybody else, you are not allowed to visit the graveyards. A few years later, the Prophet ﷺ allows the men and he allows the females. In one hadith, general allowance for everyone. So that's where the scholars debate. Those scholars who state that it is allowed for the females to visit, they say that hadith number 473 came first, came earlier, and later came hadith number 472, which opened up the doors for female visitation of the graveyards.